didn't, and I refused to, but that was not that big a deal. What I was asked to do was talk a little bit about the military and some stories. And I'll tell you a few stories, but I want to, first of all, put it in perspective. I started looking at my family history. My family's not a member of the LDS, but my father and grandfathers all cared very much about their family history, and they all collected all manner of stuff over the years, and they told stories. And I was lucky enough to sit when I was younger and your age now and listen to my grandparents and my great-grandparents. I still had a couple of them living, and listen to the stories of what they were telling me, what happened, and it was fascinating. I wrote some down. My dad did a lot of work on it, and we've got several books that we've kept, stuff that I'm trying to get organized. They're all scrap sheets of paper and everything else. But going back, I found how entwined my family was with America and the founding of America. We have people that fought the Revolutionary War, many people that fought during the Civil War on both sides. World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and Spanish-American War, and the Mexican-American War. And when you start finding these stories, it's really interesting. It's just not that there's somebody out there, but there's something, what happened to them, what did they do? And I challenge you right now, if your grandparents are alive, or your great-grandparents, sit down and talk to them and write it down. Because when you get to be my age, you're all of a sudden going to be thinking about something. Oh, I wish I'd asked Granddad about that. And it's too late. And you'll be surprised at the things that you'll think about that happened in your family, that you've just got a slice of information. Started out, we had Simon Odell came to Texas in 1843 after the real revolution. It was down here. And he got 600 acres up near Dallas. I'll tell you about those acres. But anyway, the story's always been that Simon Odell was a Texas Ranger with the Hayes Texas Rangers. Now, anybody know who the Hayes Texas Rangers were in 1847? They led the United States Army into Mexico, and they made it safe for the United States Army. They were a group of individuals that shot everybody in their way and made it safe for the Army. They were that bloodthirsty. They were so bad that by the time they got to Veracruz, the general sent them home. He didn't want them anymore. Well, the story had always been that Simon Odell had mustered in at San Antonio and went to Mexico and fought this bloody war. So I started doing some research. This is what I challenge you to do when you start doing your research on this. Look at it, because that story may not be true. My grandfather told me all sorts of stories about his heroics down at Veracruz and other things. This thing's been passed down. But I checked his records. I'm going to pass this around. Please be careful with it. These are original records. But it shows where Simon Odell was mustered in. It shows that he drew $57 to get a horse. And it tells when he mustered out and his discharge date. I'm just going to pass it around. But these are original documents, state of Texas. So I started checking the dates, and the dates weren't right. And so I checked a little bit more into Hayes Texas Rangers. And Hayes Texas Rangers had two divisions. One was the group that went to Mexico and killed everybody in the way. And the other group was the Frontier Battalion. And the Frontier Battalion protected Austin, San Antonio, all of the western frontier of Texas at that time. And he was part of that group. And they fought the Comanches and the Comancheros. And he did 6 months with that group. That was his service to it, and it's always been a thing of pride. Now later on he came back, and during the War of Northern Aggression, he joined the Army and went north to fight, and went all the way to Virginia during 4 years, came back, and because he had been on the wrong side, the federal government came in and took his 600 acres away for taxes. And he had to then go and move to Oklahoma. And that's where our family slowly moved into Oklahoma. But after Simon, I said we had 2 or 3 others. My father fought in, oh, just a minute. This is a picture of the guy in the mustache. Is Simon Odell, Texas Ranger. This was taken up in Oklahoma years later. That's part of his family. They ended up having 17 children by the time it's all over. But that's some of the stuff that I found in looking at my family history. Now, my dad was in World War II. Now, if your parents were in a war or in the military, they have medals. And I would suggest if you get them put on a board. Now, this is, my dad did this. I'm going to redo this. But this, he was in the Pacific War, World War II. And during that time, he was on a destroyer escort, USS Gentry. Destroyer escort is only half as long as this building. It's a very small ship, about 135 foot long. And they took that out of Orange, Texas, took it around through the Panama Canal, out to the Pacific, and fought in several battles. His story was that he joined the Navy when he was 17, same thing that I did, except I finished high school. He didn't finish high school. He quit before high school was over and went off to World War II. And during that time, he was on this destroyer escort that escorted large ships throughout the Pacific Ocean. And his big battle he was in was the Battle of Okinawa. I don't know if you've heard of the Battle of Okinawa or not, but it was the last big battle that we fought before we were getting ready to go to the Japanese mainland. It was bloody. Many ships were sunk. And he actually talks about the time he was a fire control technician, which meant he stayed up on the top and he had the sights that would lock on to enemy aircraft. He was able to shoot down several kamikazes himself. But one day he was talking about the fact that they were out there and all of a sudden out of nowhere 2 torpedoes started coming towards their ship. And a ship that small would have been destroyed and everybody killed on it pretty much. Those 2 torpedoes had hit it. But just by happenstance, one went by the bow and one went by the stern and missed them completely. He spent the rest of the war in the Navy, came back home. Like most people that spend a short time in, he then had to decide what he's going to do. Well, he didn't have a high school diploma, so he just went to college. And during the time he was in college, they kept demanding that he bring his high school diploma in or they wouldn't let him graduate. Well, he graduated with his bachelor's degree, and then he went on and got his master's and PhD. When he finally got his PhD, they were still demanding that he give him his high school diploma, and that's when he had to go in and tell them that I never graduated from high school. And so he made it through there, but a lot of times the service will give you some experience that will allow you to move on in life. I joined when I was 17, at a time where it was still popular to join the military. By the time I got out, it wasn't. I joined the Navy because my father had been in the Navy, great-great-grandfather had been in the Navy, and great-great-great-great-grandfather had been in the Navy. So none of us wanted to ever be in the Army. And the nice thing about the Navy is that you always have a dry bed and hot meals. You don't get that in the Army. But my goal at that time, I wanted to be a gunner's mate, which was to shoot guns. I love guns, love to blow stuff up. And so I immediately asked to be trained as a gunner's mate. I got sent to North Chicago to the gunnery school up there, and I was trained. The Navy was bringing out the USS New Jersey. And New Jersey has giant 16-inch guns on it. The shells are from here to here. It takes a hoist and they're this big around. And as they bring them in, they spin them in, you slide those into the big gun, and then you put 6 large pillows of gunpowder that are wrapped in silk. And these large pillows, you've got to be very careful about static electricity because they will blow up on you. And I was trained for 6 months on the 16-inch guns of the USS New Jersey. And I was waiting orders to meet her in New York City, and all of a sudden my orders were changed and I was sent to Swift School in San Diego to operate 50 caliber machine guns. And from there I went to the Amphibious Navy and trained for a short time. We don't train like we used to. If any of you that have talked to the military yet may have talked about SWICs, which are the swift boats or the swift small groups that go into rivers. We were the very first of that group. And we were trained in San Diego, and a very short training, and then we were sent immediately to Vietnam and got a lot of what they call on-the-job training. I operated in an area, this is Vietnam in yellow. This was South Vietnam. North Vietnam goes quite a bit further to the north. It's now all one country. This is the DMZ. This would be Saigon or Ho Chi Minh City today. And this is the Paris beat. And this is where I operated, from Cambodia all the way around to the mouth of the Mekong. We operated in small boats. This boat right here is a swift boat, and it's 50 foot long. And it holds 5 men, and it has armament of 50 caliber machine guns, twin 50s, up here, a single 50 on the back, and an 81 millimeter mortar. And it was to go in and interdict and stop arms being shipped down from North Vietnam. And we did it. We sealed off that whole area. It took us 2 years to do it. But we did it through a long period of fighting. We lost more men than the 8th Air Force did during World War II. We had 25% casualties going in and out. It was you were only supposed to spend 3 months in the area, but they killed so many people that were supposed to be replacing us that they kept our crew there for 9 months. And we were not allowed to leave for 9 months, then we got to leave after that. I still meet with these guys. Every 2 years we have a big convention. There's only 600 of us left. There were 3,000 when we started. And it's a real brotherhood, to say the least, of people I was with. But besides all the stuff, this is, I'll pass this around, Tester. This is the 93 boat. That's me up here. I'm at that position. This was taken by an NBC news photographer who was filming us and sent all his stuff back to NBC. And my mother actually saw me. Of course, I didn't find out about it until 6 months later. We didn't have cell phones back then. And you had letters, and that was about it. But I was brand new. I was the youngest on here, so I really didn't know quite what I was doing. I was in trouble often. And one of the things that we did is that we used to go up and anchor. See this little island right here? This is Phuoc Island. It's a beautiful place. Big mountain range and everything else, and it was full of Viet Cong. And we'd anchor up there, and they'd try to bring guns across from Cambodia, and we'd stop them. And what we'd do is we'd anchor out, and we'd run a radar, and if somebody popped up on the radar, we'd run out there and stop them and search them, arrest them, take their guns away, whatever. But like I said, I was brand new on this, and I really didn't know that much. And one of the things did is most people slept while one of us would stand watch. And you'd stand watch on the radar because you could see anything that's come around. But one of the things that you had to do was every 15 minutes to 20 minutes to 10 minutes was to go on the fantail, take a concussion grenade and throw it over the side. Boom! And what that did was anybody that was in the water, it would completely, if they were anywhere close to that, if it didn't kill them, it would blow their eardrums out and make it to where they were not able to attack you. Because we did have sappers coming down trying to attach mines to the side of our boats. So you take a grenade, you throw it out, and you throw it out real far, because otherwise it would sound really loud on the boat. And being from Oklahoma and not seeing any body of water much larger than a pond, the ocean was something new to me, and things like tides. Well, when you anchor on an anchor line and your boat anchors out, the tides go in, tides go out. What happens is your boat goes in a circle in a 24-hour period. So as tide goes out, your boat swings this way. Tide starts going in, your boat. So not knowing this, I just never realized that the boat was moving. Now, one of the things that you do when you're brand new is you go ask for help from other people. And one of the guys that had been there for a long time told me, he said, one of the things that you can do that's really neat, to get down there a little bit more, is you take your hand grenade and you wrap it in several rolls of toilet paper. And then when you throw it out, it really goes deep. You get don't get a loud explosion, but it's just deep, and the shock waves will go further out. So I was doing this, and I was sitting there, and I'd wrap it 5 or 6 times, roll of toilet paper full of pin, throw it way out there. Boom! Oh man, that was cool. Wrap it 10 times. Throw it way out there. Several minutes go by. Boom! Reverberates in it. So I said, okay, whole roll of toilet paper. I get this thing, I barely hold it in my hand. I pull the pin, I just throw it as far as I can, and nothing happens. Now, the other thing that you don't know when you're from Oklahoma is that the ocean is not thousands of foot deep. As a matter of fact, where we were, it was only about 10 foot deep. We were up here on right next to the island, and the sediment load out there had filled this up, and this was like a very shallow lake. And so I'm checking the radar, and I'm checking the guns, and I'm walking around, and nothing's going on, and all this time, slowly, without me realizing it, the boat is swinging. And just about the time we were directly over where the grenade was, it went off. And it sounded like someone had hit us with another boat. It just, bam, it woke everybody up. Everybody came screaming out. What happened? What happened? Have we been bombed? I said, no. I just threw the grenade too close. So after that, I was not allowed to throw grenades. There were several things that happened during that year that I was not allowed to do during the time. I think the thing that you get most out of it is that if you do go into service, that you grow a lot. Not only do you grow a lot, but you see the world and you see other people. And you learn about other things that are going on. And it makes you not afraid. I think that one of the things that I got out of it more than anything else, it was after this happened to me and after I got back, it was, nothing ever bothered me. I didn't worry about stuff. And it was an intense growing experience. I was able to parlay that. I stayed in the Naval Reserve for a little while and then got out, but I still stay in contact with all my buddies. And it's just a real fantastic brotherhood. Unfortunately, I tried to get my son into the Naval Academy, and he didn't want anything to do with it. He decided that wasn't for him, and it's not for everybody. It's one of the things that bothers me today is that we're an all volunteer military, and because of that, less than 1% of men and women go into our military and have contact with what goes on. The rest of us don't. When I was in, and when it was everybody was over there. Everybody was drafted or volunteered. And so you had that tie to the military, and I feel like we lose that now. One of the stories that this is rather interesting. I'll show you. I've got a book up here. This is, say, your family history. These are clippings of things that I was on, and also pictures that I took while I was over there. But one of the things that used to happen is, you see these rivers that we go up? Some of these rivers were not this wide from here to there. And we take a boat down it. And the VC would be on either side of us. And what they would do is, because it's a river twist and turn, before we figured it out, is that we would take a big turn and we'd turn and we'd have a boat going this way and another boat going this way, and they'd be in the middle and they'd fire on us and drop down into a spider hole, and then we'd shoot each other. And that happened about 3 or 4 times before we got smart enough to quit doing it. We were the very first Navy River Patrol ever. And a lot of what we learned, we had to learn daily. There wasn't anybody to teach us or to bring it back. Now what has happened since then is that they reconstituted us. They reconstituted the SWICs, and they have a huge training facility in Coronado where we used to train. And they asked us to come, and I went there a couple times, and we sat in on seminars, we told them what we went through and what we learned, and they're training them. Now, our training was 6 weeks long, and then we were in combat. These guys now get 2 years of training, and then their ship goes. It's a much better deal, and their boats and their equipment are much better. We actually had to steal from the Army uniforms and guns because the Navy didn't have the stuff over there at the time. What I wanted to bring to you, and I hope I did, is that you have relatives that have been in the service. Capture that, capture their stories, and put them in your family history. And with that, I'll open to any questions. Okay, well, thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Dismissed.